We don't make any money on coaching. We don't make any money on education, but we just want to constantly provide value.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, excited to have Kevin Amolsch. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Dude, Todd, I'm so glad to be back. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. So, Kevin, man, I don't know. You were on the show, right? So how long ago was that?
Gosh, feels like a couple of years. We talk quite a
At
bit. You've been
least,
on my
man.
podcast, but it's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. So a little bit about Kevin, to reintroduce him. Formed Hine Financial Group in 2008 after leaving a small mortgage company as a senior loan officer. And Kevin has built that company into a pretty awesome company, very active today. You guys are funding mainly flips, right? Single family flips. And you might have expanded more, but I know Colorado, Minnesota. Are you in any other areas?
Yeah, we do some business in Wisconsin, up in Milwaukee, and right across the border there from the cities. And then within the last 2 years, we decided to go back into DC. So that's an interesting story, but we're back loaning in Washington, DC.
Got it. Tell me the story. What's the story?
So when you have a company like this, and we're generating notes, and notes are great because they produce cash flow and it's very steady and secure.
Yeah.
Well, you'll get pitched by like people who want to invest in these notes, right? So think about your family offices, you think about your hedge funds, those guys. So we get pitched every couple times a month, probably, people wanting to invest with us or buy notes, these kinds of things. And so we had a hedge fund that was courting us for quite some time, and they really wanted to be making loans in Washington, D.C. because they had some relationships there. The manager of this fund did. So we said, well, we got together and said, why don't we build the system and you bring the money? So we'll originate, we'll underwrite, we'll service, you bring all the money. And it just takes a long time to get something going. And we didn't do a good job. I didn't do a good job of setting expectations. So they were expecting us to get, like $3 million, $4 million out the door immediately. And it just takes time to build the relationships and get the marketing machine and all of that going. So they decided to reduce their exposure. And once you do that, I kind of like, well, now what are we supposed to do? Because we can't go around telling people we can't fund their deal, right? So we had to make the difficult decision to separate from that hedge fund. And we just went back because we already had all the, the relationships established. I had the meetup group that people were active in. And so it was just an easy target to expand when we were ready to go.
So how long were you in the market? Then how long were you out of the market?
Yeah. Gosh, let me think about this. So we were in for about 6 months. And I'm guessing here a little bit, Todd. What's that?
That's it. Only 6 months.
It was pretty short, really short. Right? So it's pretty short. But it's still 6 months is enough time to get your beat ups going. And, we were traveling
you're
out
putting
there.
a lot of marketing and travel and like you said, the meetups. And so you're laying all the groundwork in that first 6 months.
So yeah. How long the association owners and all of that. Right.
Yeah. How long were you out of the market then?
Now, like 3 years, probably.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Did you continue the meetup and did you continue some of that outreach in the market, or did you just kind of let that market go?
It's interesting you asked that because yes, we kept it all, and we would do webinars on the meetup, right? We're not flying out there to do an in-person mixer networking event because we're not doing business there, but we definitely invited that meetup group to all of our webinars. We tried to keep them active. And then I started hearing like, well, actually this is pre-COVID, but I think Meetup at one point, if you weren't meeting in person live, they were going to remove your page or remove your Meetup group or whatever.
Oh, wow.
But I think with COVID and all that, people were meeting online, so you couldn't do that. So I think we were able to save it, even though we weren't meeting. But now we're back out there.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, one of the things that I think you guys do really well, that you guys are hard money lenders, right? So you're lending on your target is single family fix and flips. Right. And one thing that you guys do really well is provide that education. and you're providing it certainly as a marketing tool, but you're also just providing it. I've spoken at your events, and I'm
Right.
not speaking about fix and flips, right? And so you're
Right.
not only providing education on fix and flips and that, but you're also providing education on all kinds of other avenues in real estate that would, I don't know, not necessarily be your competitor, but it doesn't lead somebody down the fix and flip route, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And we teach like wholesaling, for example. Like you don't need
yeah,
money to wholesale, right?
right.
But I think if I could help people make money and I can improve lives, first of all, that's what I want to do. But second, I really believe that will come back, right? There'll be a referral, or when they are ready to do a flip, they might call me. So we don't make any money on coaching. We don't make any money on education, but we just want to constantly provide value.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you guys do a pretty big um educational day in the Twin
Yeah.
Cities. Um, and
Yeah. I was looking
you
that
don't
up.
you
What
don't
is
make
that?
money on that at all.
No,
No,
that's a
there's
break
no
even,
way.
and sometimes it's a
Maybe.
loser.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say
Sometimes it's a
maybe. I
yeah.
don't know. I know how much it costs to run a conference, and it's definitely not cheap. And you are not charging a lot of money for that day, so it's providing a ton of value for people. But that is the thing. Like I've spoken, I haven't. I don't believe I ever used Pine for because I think when you guys entered the market, I was pretty much done
I think
flipping.
so.
So I don't believe I've ever used you guys as a hard money lender. But one of the things that's happened because of the education that you guys provide, and I've been a part of it and gotten to know you and your team, is that I refer you guys all the time.
Thank
And
you.
but it's not because I just want to refer. It's not. It's just easy because it's like, well, I know these guys and I know they do business and I know you and I know your team and I know you guys are ethical. But you've put yourself out there enough where it's like that's an easy referral. Like I don't even have to think about it. Somebody says who's a good hard money lender. Well, the main name that comes to my mind is it's Pine, right? Because you guys have become that group that everybody thinks of, and so
Yeah. You want to be the thought leader, right? This is the
right.
exact reason you're doing the podcast.
Yeah, and so my point is, I guess, to my listeners is this is Kevin, your company is a great example of being a thought leader in the industry, not really worrying about your marketing in what you're doing, right? You're marketing, but you're providing this great education. And I've never seen you pitch in any of the education that you've provided. So it's really cool.
Thank you, Todd. It's interesting that you bring that up because it was, this is probably a good piece of nugget here for your listener, but early on in my career, and we all start like this, but you really need that transaction, right? Because you got to pay the mortgage, you got to pay for your kids' school supplies, you got to pay for all these things. So a lot of us work on fee, like it's a fee based, right? So you have to have that closing to get paid.
Yeah.
And then you're so focused on this closing, this one closing, because you need the money for whatever it is. Half the time it's spent before you even got it.
Yeah.
Right. But once you have when I was able to shift my mind to focus on adding value and not worry about the money and just, the money will come. If I just focus on helping this person improve their life. Once I was able to make that shift, that's when all the money started coming in. So it's pretty crazy, but I still remember so distinctly as I was going through that process of getting my mind to just think differently.
What was there anything you did like, or was there like an event that happened that made you go, whoa, that this is what I need to do?
I don't know if there's a specific event, but you read business books, you read finance books. You're constantly, anybody listening to this is like I would consider a high achiever, and they want to improve their life. So they're out there trying to do that, right? They're self-improvement. So I'm sure everyone can relate when you're reading these books and you're hearing the same message over and over. It just kind of starts to settle in, right? So that's really what it was. But I don't know if there's anything distinct. It's just hearing the message over and over.
Just educating yourself really. And then that's the key is once you start surrounding yourself with that knowledge, you start to become it. I
Yeah.
think that's so key for anybody. I can remember when I transitioned from flipping and doing smaller rentals to doing larger rental properties and doing syndication. Syndication was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
But I started listening to all these podcasts and talking with people that were doing it, and just like getting to know some of the words around it and the splits and all that kind of stuff. And before I did my first deal, I was an expert in syndication. It's funny,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I knew everything, but I hadn't even done a deal yet, because
That's
you
amazing.
surround yourself with people. It's like you're drinking from the fire hose and you just keep on going. You just stand your ground and let it hit you in the face, until you finally start to absorb it.
Yeah, and Todd has no excuse anymore, right? Back when you and I were starting, it was like you had to go to the bookstore and buy a freaking book off the shelf,
Yeah.
right? And then go home and read it. Now it's like I could be listening and getting my freaking master's degree in real estate
Yeah.
through podcasts as I'm driving down the road. Like that wasn't a thing. So
Yeah.
now it's
I
like there
remember.
really isn't.
Yeah, there's no excuse. I
No
remember
excuses.
going to the library and renting out an audio tape
Yeah, there
or
were
a
tapes.
CD, right?
Yeah.
And putting it in my vehicle and then driving around. I remember listening to Carlton Sheets and talking about driving for dollars. And here I am listening to Carlton. I'm behind the wheel. He told me to go look for the ugly house and then knock on the door. And you go, look at the ugly house, knock on the door, and the guy tells you to get the heck out of there.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn. I don't know who you are. But Carlton told me to come here. But man,
Oh, but you have to go through those processes, right? So
yeah.
one of the things we do at Pine is we do a monthly mastermind group for the employees. So anyone, it's a total optional thing. So anybody that wants to come together, we meet one time per month, and all we do is brainstorm and try to help each other with our own personal real estate transactions. Like, how can I help you build wealth, right? And so one of the guys, one of the guys is like, he's trying to get comfortable, right, with just the whole idea. So we have him cold calling. That's a good way to start. Any good salesperson is going to start knocking on doors or cold calling. So he's going through the script, FISBOs and FURBOs, and it's actually quite fun. It takes me back, right? And now I could help him lift him up.
I love it. That's really cool that you do that for your employees. I think some people are scared of doing things like that for their employees because they don't want to lose them. They know when they educate them and they become motivated that they're going to lose them eventually. They don't want them to fly from the coop. So
I think the exact opposite. I mean, I hear what
that's
you're
really
saying, and
good.
because think about it. If I'm adding so much value, why would you want to leave?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just like, this is actually an employee retention strategy. I'm obviously I want to do it because I want everyone to be successful, but I mean, there's a good argument for it being a retention strategy.
Yeah, I would agree. I think though the fear is that it's they're going to all of a sudden learn so much and then basically steal your
Yeah,
secret
that's
recipe, right? And it's like,
such a limited mindset, Todd, and you know this better than anybody. That's what the mind shift I'm talking about. Once you
Yeah.
get the abundance mindset, like there's enough for us all, guys. Once you can get that mindset and start trying to help, then I think it just changes your world. Seriously.
So you've written a couple books. The latest one you wrote is Fund Your Flip.
Right.
That one, what, just a month ago is
Yeah,
when it
exactly.
released? Yeah.
Yeah.
So a month ago you released that. Um, why, I guess explain the book a little bit, and then why write a book? There's already books about flips.
Yeah. There are books about flips, but I can tell you what there's not. And it's any book about hard and private money and using that to fund flips. And there's quite a lot of information on how you could use hard money. Look, people are afraid of it, right? You hear the high interest rates and the
By the
points
way,
and all this.
I'm one of those people, Kevin, that was very afraid of hard money when I was
Yeah.
in business.
Yeah. And it's like, I remember my first fix and flip when I did, and all I knew how to do is negotiate lease options. So I go into this freaking house to negotiate this fix and flip, and I'm negotiating a lease option. It's the exact wrong tool to use in that situation, right? But I didn't know any better. Hard money is just a tool. It's not going to be for every situation. So if I could teach people how to have this one tool in the tool belt, and they could pull it out when they're ready to use it, right? So that's why I wrote the book. You can get bits and pieces of hard money in other fix and flip books, but nothing dives deep into this. Like we talk about how to stack the debt with mezz financing and equity and different strategies you could use. Like how about owner carry's coming back, right? So how about we use the owner to supply the equity so I can go get a bank loan, or use some mezz to get like what you do with your syndications. You do a preferred equity position, which really is just an equity disguised as debt, right? It's debt disguised as equity, right? So those types of strategies, so that you can get deals closed, that they don't go into detail like that in the other books.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think, look, if you're going to be flipping houses, wholesaling houses, that's something you really need to know. You go in there, and plus, if you're going to sit there and negotiate with somebody that's wanting to sell their house, you don't know what their reason to sell is. And if you only have one solution, you're just missing on a lot of potential deals, right? I mean, if somebody's got to close quickly and we know we can go to Pine and get this loan and get it done quick and we can get that closing done, then hard money was the right answer. If this seller doesn't need the money and would rather finance, then hard money is not the right answer, right?
Right.
So it's just I like how you said that hard money is just a tool. It's just one tool in the toolbox. It shouldn't be the only tool, and you got to know how to use it. So let's go through. I mean, you wrote a whole book on it, right? So certainly there's more than one way to use hard money, or the right and the wrong way. So let's talk about a little bit of that. Are there like maybe key things that we can pull out of that book?
Yeah. So let me back up just a tad here, Todd, because the only reason I wrote this book is because of what we were accomplishing with our live in-person event. So we do a hard money lending class, and it was really just to help people understand, the concept of hard money and how to use it as a tool, as we described. And then we went and got CE credits, and realtors love it because they can get more transactions closed, right? Well, this class, the feedback we were receiving year after year is, look, because of you and this class, I was able to do X or Y. And it's millions of dollars, Todd, that people were making because of this class. And then the feedback is, I'm learning more in this 2 hours than I learned in my weekend seminar or my coaching program from one of the flipping houses shows, and so I was like, well, there's something here. How can I get this message out to more people? So that's what's in the book. It's just it's the class like on steroids, because there's a lot more detail in it. But I'll give you a perfect example, and we all know the strategy, the BRRRR strategy now. But when we were getting started, we didn't have a term for it, right? We just did it.
Yep.
So the way this
a lot
works
of BRRRRs
is,
before BRRRRs were.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too.
You
I
too.
built a whole portfolio on this strategy, right? I mean, at that and lease options. But I mean, if you can get into a property with very little or even no money down in some instances, so there's still hard money lenders out there that do no money down financing, right? So if you could find that and present the deal to them that they're attracted to it, and then you could buy a property with little or no money down, get it fixed up, get the tenant in there, get it working, get it cash flowing, and then refinance into your permanent 30-year debt, right? So that's a way to acquire property with very little down. And if you're not putting money down, how many properties can you buy, right?
Yeah.
You might be limited on some caps with the Fannie Freddie guidelines and that kind of thing, which there's strategies around that too. But you're not going to be capped by capital.
Yeah.
So that's one strategy I think is maybe often overlooked. People think, BRRRR, well, why don't I just put my money into it and then I'll try to get my money back out in a refinance? Well, it's not quite that easy. What if you just don't ever have money into it in the first place?
Yeah. Right. What if you can go to that hard money lender? And I think a lot of people think that hard money is only in the case of doing a flip. They don't think of it in that BRRRR situation. We can get the money quickly. We can close on the property. We can do our strategy, and then we can refinance with a long-term lender. You're not a long-term lender. You don't want these properties long-term.
Right.
You're the solution for somebody that only wants, they want to get rid of you. Like you
Yeah.
want them to want to get rid of you.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect. We want them to pay it off. They want to pay it off.
Yeah.
That's what helps keep our investors safe. If I'm turning money every 5 months, I could limit my exposure to market risk, right? So I, it's all a strategy to mitigate risk and to bring consistency and stability to an investor's portfolio. So there's two sides of the business, right? I'm mentioning it now, but we raise private capital and then we loan it out. So there's really two sides to this.
How do you mitigate risk for your investors that you just mentioned? Because you are inherently in a risky business, right? Flipping houses can be risky. Um, just simply because you're buying a property and you're fixing it up and you're hoping that the market behaves well and you're hoping that you come under budget and you can actually sell it, right? We
Yep.
all know what happened in 2008, and and there's always that fear, right? I think everybody's mind that we all remember 2008 through 2013.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice little
and
run there.
yeah, nice little run. So everybody's mind goes back to that, right? I think you hear it. It feels like you hear it every year or two, like, oh, we're going to have a crash
Yeah,
again. So anyways,
that's right.
how do you mitigate risk for your investors? So that, they're not exposed as much to market shifts.
Yeah, that's a great question, Todd. And it's really comes down to two things. It's your underwriting and your servicing. So on the underwriting side, I mean, we're going to underwrite a deal very similar to the fix and flipper would, right? And there is risk in fixing and flipping, but I tell you on the debt side, you're far more safe. In fact, I should even say this: fixing and flipping isn't real estate investing. I mean, for some reason that just really bothers me, because as soon as you stop flipping, you're off the treadmill, right?
Yep.
And the money stops coming in. You got to get back on the treadmill and start running again to start earning income. Now you can earn a lot of money, but you're not building wealth, right?
Yep.
Unless you're taking those profits and investing it in syndications, like with you, or doing your own rental properties or something like that. So I don't particularly like fixing and flipping. I make money because of that. So it's funny to hear me say that, but I think people should be building wealth with long-term investments, rentals,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. But back to your question, there is risk in fixing and flipping. Now that's why I like the debt side of the business, because I'm the very first person to get paid. I don't have the risk of as much risk as the owner of the property, right? So some of the guidelines that we like to follow, the big ones are, low loan to values. We want to make sure that the deal's going to pencil. So we're at 70% of the property's value. That way, if there is some market movement, at least we have a little bit of cushion there. And then liquidity. This is one of the biggest reasons for default, is not enough liquidity. So I'm telling you that we could do no money down financing. That's true, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't have any money. Like, you should definitely have money in the bank to handle an overage in your construction, or an extra couple of months of marketing time, or something like that. So those are the two big ones. Obviously, we run profitability and sometimes stress test deals, like what happens if the market shifts? How much money are you going to make? Are you still going to be profitable? And then on the servicing side, we just stay on top of it, right? We do our inspections. We're out there at the properties, looking at them, making sure the construction is going as planned. We require monthly payments. I know a lot of hard money lenders don't do that, but I do that for two reasons. One, if there's going to be a problem, I've never had a borrower call me and just say, "Hey, I'm out of money," right? So, but if that payment doesn't come in, then I know that there's a problem, and I could jump in front of it, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one is, it creates pressure for them. So if there's pressure on them with the monthly payments, they tend to move a little faster, and they end up making more money. So I think it's good for all of us.
Other than missing a payment, what are red flags that you will see when you say, okay, we better start reaching out to this borrower? I think something's going on here. Are there certain things that you guys see that you guys maybe have even implemented your business to make sure you're checking those areas?
That's such a sophisticated question, Todd. It's almost like you've done this before. Yeah, so the payment's the big one, right? But if the construction draw requests aren't coming in as you had planned,
Sure.
so if it's a slow request or it stalls, that would be one. Sometimes we'll get notified about mechanics liens, or if it gets shut down by the city. So we'll look for that kind of thing. Insurance is a big one. If it lapses or misses an insurance payment. A lot of this is, I mean, almost all of it, I guess, it comes down to their financial position. The trouble in fix and flip game, if you get in trouble, it's because you don't have the money.
Yeah. 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 So I want to go back to what you said about fix and flips. You're not, I agree. You're not an investor. It's not real estate investing. You're simply, it's,
It's a job.
it's a job, and it can be a business, but it's a fix and flip business, right? It can, it's just like running a construction company. I mean, this is essentially what you are. You're essentially a contractor, right? You're running a
Yeah.
construction company, you're fixing up a house, and then you're selling that. You're your own client in this case. But I do think it's a great strategy for people who are getting started in the real estate business, or even if they want to continue and do it as a bit, run it as a true business. Um, that's something I, quite frankly, have thought about. I used to flip a lot of houses, as you know, and I think about it sometimes still today is like,
Really.
maybe I should flip one house a year so my kids can be a part of it, right? So
Yeah,
they can see it,
totally.
and so they can start learning the business, and I'll get them, into the house, and it'll be kind of their project. So I think it's a great strategy. So I don't want to discourage people from that, but I agree with you. It's not real estate investing. Fix and flip in order to buy assets, right? Uh, that's what I think is the better strategy. Or to
Yeah, I
to
couldn't
to
agree
buy.
more. And I'm not trying to downgrade. Look, I make my money by loaning to people fix and flip, right? But
Yeah,
I just, I don't particularly like it, the business. I think it's very challenging.
it
Um,
is
but
challenging.
yeah, you can make a ton of money. I mean, I see some of my clients making, six figures a deal, and they're doing 8, 10, 12 deals a year. I mean,
Yeah,
so you can definitely make a high income by doing it. I just don't want
that's
to
not easy
confuse
work.
that with, I just don't want to confuse that with investing. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, you're not making seven figures in flipping houses and still hanging out at the beach,
Yeah,
for
exactly.
2 months. It's just not
I'm
going to
telling my
happen.
clients all the time, look, you guys are killing it. Can you just take every third one and buy a rental? Like, how about
Yeah.
that? You take the profit from this one and buy a rental every third or something. I mean, I get it. You got overhead, you got all of these things, but gosh, at some point you got to build a portfolio here. And maybe you don't
Yep.
like rental, so you invest in syndications or whatever it is, but let's just take a little bit out and invest it for the future. And I
That's
sound like a
honestly,
financial planner now, but I mean, I care about them, right? So it's like I could see it.
but you see it, and that you understand that that's truly the best strategy. I mean, that's how I built my portfolio. Is I would flip about 3 to 4 houses, and I would keep one of them. And
There you
it
go.
wasn't like a perfect science, right? It wasn't exactly that, but I would pick out the ones that I liked the best. Sometimes I would keep 3 properties in a row, right? And I wouldn't flip any for a month because I'd be keeping them. Sometimes I'd flip 7 in a row, right? Because I didn't like none of these all suck to keep, right? But the point is, like you're saying, you're building this job.
Yeah.
Take some of the profits off the table, and keep them as a rental, or invest in a syndication, invest in your fund, those types of things, with the flips. What you mentioned, mesdat, and different debt tools to use. Explain some of the strategies around hard money, or like getting these properties. Like, how can people get into a flip in different ways?
Yeah. So, a lot of people that have, a lot of investors that have limited resources go out and try to bring in the capital, right? So they'll go out and raise private money. They'll bring in partners to help them with their fix and flip. The problem with that, not necessarily the problem, I think it's all fantastic, but one problem with that is it's very expensive. Like if you start sharing profits and you're doing well as a fix and flipper, you're making, you know, decent, it gets very, very expensive. So I would just encourage the listener here to at least explore some debt options, because debt is going to be cheaper than equity if the deals are good, if they're profitable deals. So can you layer in some debt and reduce the amount you have to share in the equity side by, you know, a lot, and then keep a bigger chunk of the profit for yourself? And look, your debt partner, the hard money lender, isn't going to be out there making decisions, right? They want you to do the job. That's what you do. That's your job, not mine.
Yep.
But your partners might be, you know, I don't know about that color. I mean, I'm gonna pick the tile, you know. So it's like debt partners are going to be silent 100% of the time unless there's a problem.
Yeah.
So I think just exploring some debt partners, if you want to call it that, or hard money lenders instead of physical equity, you know, partnerships, might be a good thing to look at.
Kevin, so I used to take investors equity, and I started doing equity. I switched it over to more of a debt type structure when I was flipping. But when I first started, I was doing like 50-50 splits with my money. And the last time I did that, well, I shouldn't, maybe it wasn't the last time, but when I realized that I was doing it wrong, is I made like 80K on a house, and I had to give my investor a $40,000 profit check. And I looked at the amount of interest that I paid, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, this is a 6-month loan. The guy borrowed me like 70 grand, and I gave him his 70 grand back plus $40,000 in, you know,
Whoa.
like 5-6 months. I mean,
And you should be happy because you just made a fortune
I
on
was
that deal. That's a
happy,
great, but
right?
it kind of feels dirty, doesn't it?
It was like, what am I doing here? This is so wrong. So I reduced my split to a 40-60, and then because I was already running that kind of model, and then I quickly changed it to then just paying smaller interest payments, and then using some hard money. Like I said, you weren't quite in the market, I don't think, at that time, but I realized, like, holy cow, that equity I was giving away so much money, so much money. I mean, would be happy if somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, Kevin, like, look, you're just charging way too little. I'll give you $40,000 for 6 months." Just
So
be,
funny, dude. We get calls like the deal didn't go as well. Oh, can you reduce how much we owe you? Can we reduce the? But I don't ever get the phone call. Hey, this one really did well. I'm going to
yeah.
pay you a little bit more. You know.
Nobody wants to give you more for some reason. Oh man. Um, how can people get your book? I want people to get it. I think it's look, if you're anywhere in the world of fix and flips, of wholesaling, of burrs, any of that, I think definitely valuable.
Yeah, I agree, and it's so affordable. I think. I mean, I'm not sure what the price is right now. I can go look, but by the time this comes out, it's going to be less than $10 for the physical, the hard, you know, paperback.
Yeah.
It's just fundyourflip.com. And on there, there's some resources that you can use in the book. Like there's calculators. In fact, I think it's the only one. It's the only one I've ever seen on a Burr strategy calculator.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit more complicated to build that, right? So that you don't see that very often, but you can get that on there, and then that'll take you right over to the Amazon page where you could purchase a book. So fundyourflip.com.
And then you got all kinds of events. And again, it doesn't matter what you're doing in real estate. You're going to cover it at some point in time. So if you're in Minnesota, Colorado, do you do events? You do events in DC now. Do you do events in Wisconsin too?
We don't, no,
Okay.
but we do a lot of it. A lot of it's online now. So the hard money class that we're talking about, that we do that online. So I think the in-person is just so much better. Like in that class, we go through like an actual deal, like who's working on a fix and flip right now, and then we analyze the deal live right there.
That's
So
really cool.
that's really cool. But you can't really do that so well on a Zoom. But yeah, so in DC or Wisconsin, you can get on some of the Zoom events that we're doing, and then Minneapolis and Denver, We do a lot of events there. In fact, I mean, and you're saying we cover pretty much everything. Now, we're not an expert in everything, right? So we bring in people like you to come and share the stage with, and you tell us about your expertise. So we try to cover everything just by bringing in local experts. We like the locals, not the national guys, because they seem to really care and understand the market better.
And can you find that at Pine Financial?
Yeah, if you go to pinefinancialgroup.com and then there's an events page on there,
Love it.
it's like you got to go to the menu and down to the events.
Kevin, let's switch over here. I want to ask you favorite book that you've, either read recently or something you really want to recommend to our listeners.
So Fund Your Flip, this book that, no,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So, I mean, it's so easy to just go to the Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Because that's how most of us have gotten started. But I'll tell you what I'm really enjoying right now, and it's traction. And the reason for that is because we're at a level now we really are trying to scale. So we have 13 people, and we have about $160 million that we have under management that we make for these loans, right? So Traction is a great book for someone who's at least a little bit established and is ready to go to the next level.
Have you implemented the traction system? Are you going to that extent and like hire, because they've got their own consultants and their own program that you can just plug in. Have you gone to that route yet?
Yeah, we haven't paid for it. So I know it's very expensive to have an implementer come into your organization.
Yep.
But I mean, the book is actually pretty good. So
It's pretty
it's
detailed.
not easy to implement it. I'm not saying that, but it does give you like the path, right? The map. And so I'm working with my leadership team. I have an executive team of 3. There's 3 of us, and we have our quarterly meetings, and we are implementing Traction. So we're doing some of the things like rocks with our team. So every quarter we call it a 90-day plan, but it's really just your 5 rocks that we want you to focus on this quarter. And if you do that, you get, part of the bonus. You get to participate in the bonus plan. And the bonus is all based on profitability of the company. So we're sharing profits with the staff. But you have to hit the rocks. And we got that from Traction. So then now we got the meeting polls. So now we're going to start doing the scorecard and the way you view your people and that kind of thing. So we are implementing it. It's just very slow.
Yep. Everybody that I know that's implemented Traction, whether they did it on their own or they hired the implementation team, absolutely loves it.
It's lovely.
So-
It will change your life for sure.
Yeah.
But the E-Myth, that's another fantastic book, the E-Myth Revisited. If you're a business owner, that's where the whole idea of getting out of the business and working on it instead of in it, right? That's where I got that idea from. And then it's just like building your systems, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great book. I love that book. Okay. Last question. Actually, I think I'm going to ask one more before I ask that one. What's a mistake you've made and how have you learned from it?
Oh gosh, we could do a whole podcast on this one. So so the mistake, gosh, where do I even go? I bought a hotel that I thought I could convert to apartments, and I couldn't. That was a pretty big one. That was probably my biggest mistake as far as money goes.
Why couldn't you?
The city wouldn't allow it. I didn't check.
Got it.
Yeah. And so it was an extended stay hotel that in Branson, Missouri. So it was almost like it was like run on cash. It was crazy, but people would want to pay for cash. So that tells you the clientele, right? Well, it turns out my manager was like pocketing the cash and not even sending it to me. So it was just like, it was a whole mess. That I had a drunk driver drive through one of the buildings. So it was quite the mess there. But I think my biggest mistake, I think, is my very first tenant, Todd. And it's amazing to me that it amazes me that I'm even in the business still after this, but that's the tenacity. Because I put a tenant in without screening them. My very first tenant became my very first eviction. And it was bad. I was like getting a little bit of threats. They were running some kind of business out of there. There was like car stereos like stacked up, like a whole inventory wall. They had stolen guns hidden in the attic. When I finally got them out and I had to do the cleanup, I didn't have enough money for the cleanup. So I'm over there like doing it myself, and it was totally infested with roaches, like toward the point where they were like dropping off the ceiling as you were walking. Oh my God. They were coming out of the light sockets or the plug. So I think the biggest lesson was just being too anxious to fill up a property and not doing any diligence on the tenant.
Yeah. Yeah. That is huge. And I've made that mistake before. I think I've always done the background checks, but then sometimes you ignore the
Yeah,
big red
exactly.
flags because
You just want that check so
you
bad.
need
Yeah.
it. You need it. Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what though, and I know this is cliche, but no tenant is better than that tenant.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes it's better. Just leave your building vacant. If you can't find
Yeah,
somebody to
totally.
fill it, you just leave it vacant. All right. So last question. What are your three pillars of wealth creation?
Ah, gosh, that's such a good and tough question. For me, freedom or financial wealth creation is like freedom, right? So I think that we're all going for that. We want to be able to do what we want, when we want, with who we want, and I could tell you, I've experienced both sides, like having that and then being like going bankrupt, right? So I could tell you the freedom, what we're all shooting for, that means an awful lot, and money can create that for you. But it's also part of that freedom is being able to do what you want. So do you want to help other people? And like so many of us do. So it's being able, having the capacity to actually make a difference.
Yeah.
And then finally, I really do think wealth is relationships. You can have all the money in the world and terrible relationships, and we hear the stories all the time, and you could be miserable, right? So money won't make you happy. I believe that. I think not having money will make you unhappy. So I think money is important, but the relationships are far more important.
Yeah, I think there's this statistic out there, and who knows like what the actual number is, but they've got numbers of, you're once you hit, 100K of income a year or whatever, it might be more now with
Yeah, I've
inflation.
heard this. Yeah,
Maybe it's 130 now, but once you hit that income, you're no happier than if you were at double that, triple that, quadruple that. Like there's a certain threshold that's where you're like no longer financially worried. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you're financially worried, you're going to be less happy. If you're
totally.
financially kind of feel good about it, then that burden is lifted off your table. It's not so much, can I buy a bunch of crap? Can I go get Louis Vuitton, whatever they sell? It's
I don't know either.
yeah, it's, am I worried about paying the bills? Am I worried about my kids? Am I worried about financially supporting ourselves? And once that's covered, I think that it doesn't matter as much. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I drive this like old car. It's 2015. It's like 140 something thousand miles on it, and every month or so, I got to put a quart of oil in it because it's burning oil, and I can't figure out why. Right? I could go out and buy a different car, right? But that doesn't necessarily make me happier. And I see other people with really nice cars that make far less, and they're not happier. So
yeah.
it's like I could do much better things with that. So I don't know why I just said that. But
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's all about what you think is important, right? Some people the car does make them happy. Like having that car has been a lifelong dream of theirs. It makes them happy. They love cars. They love a luxury like that, and it makes them happy. Go and buy that car. That's fine. For me, I could care less. You're going to give
yeah,
me a 2010 Chevy Silverado versus you know brand new Mercedes, like I could care less.
me too.
It
I don't want to be broken down on the side of the road. That would make me unhappy.
that would make me unhappy. Yes, yes, I agree with you. But for some people, like ha- they love that certain car, like that's amazing for them, and maybe that makes them happy, and that's okay.
Yeah,
That's fine. For me, I would rather take that money, and I'm going to come visit you in Colorado, and we're going to go hit the mountain. Like that would make me happier going,
totally.
skiing down the mountain. So.
Yeah,
All right,
couldn't
man.
agree more.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate it. Listeners, fund your flip. Check out that book and just, look, Pine Financial, Kevin, eh, other than fund your flip, pinefinancialgroup.com. Any other ways people can get in touch with you?
I think those are the best. I mean, I still respond to my own email. So if you want to email me, it'll be me that responds. It's kevin@pinefinancialgroup.com. But yeah, pinefinancialgroup.com. There's a ton of information on there, links to our YouTube videos and lots of resources.
Cool. Kevin, Pleasure having you back on, and you
Todd,
have
it
a
was great.
fantastic rest of the day.
Yep. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. Say, I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.